That's the good stuff.
Welcome back, everybody, to Goodwill Podcasting with Connor, Dan, and Stone, your movie podcast that today is talking about one of the most famous authors guaranteed of all time, and that is Stephen King, because we have a new adaptation of one of his short stories that has come out in theaters this past weekend, The Monkey from Oz Perkins, that stars Theo James. We're going to talk about that at the end of this episode, but we thought it'd be interesting to talk about other adaptations from his work, some popular ones that you might have heard of, maybe not as diverse as we would have thought. Picking these, two of them are very similar, but that's okay. Both very iconic films. But today we will be discussing Misery, The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, Gerald's Game, the Netflix original movie from Mike Flanagan, and then also The Monkey as well. And for the second time, I believe, on the podcast, third time. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Legend King. I apologize. Working with Mission Impossible over here. I bow down to you. I apologize so much. But today we have Movie Talk with Brock back on with us. This guy, came in last minute, gave us, did a Hail Mary to him and he delivered, gave us that touchdown. Brock, thank you so much for coming back. Welcome to Goodwill Podcasting and good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
This morning.
Yes. I was gonna say I delivered like Jalen Hurts did, and like unlike Patrick Mahomes did in the Super Bowl, my friend. So there you go. I know you're a Chiefs fan. Stan, I'm sorry.
Dan already likes you. You don't keep kissing his ass.
Yeah, stroking Dan.
Okay, not a real Chiefs fan. All right, don't worry.
I know.
I know. Here's the thing, guys. I thought about this a lot. For anybody who doesn't know,
he's a Lions.
These guys asked me to name a certain amount of players on the team, and I could not. We will not speak about how many there were.
I asked that off camera too, to be respectful.
I know. But here's the thing: I like sports, right? And I feel like I'm being attacked by my two co-hosts for not being a diehard sports fan. Am I allowed to have Chief shirts, even though I don't know said number of players? Is there a rule?
I mean, you did ditch the Lions.
Okay. I was born in Kansas City. Remember that. I was born. So I had that. I had that like it.
Before you moved to Michigan.
I don't know, a year. I was 1 year old. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot. So, yeah.
No judgment.
My dad was... Yeah. I'm a Chiefs fan because my father was serving our country. Way to go, Connor. You should respect that, Connor.
No, don't you put that on us, Rick Bobby. Don't you go there.
What branch was your dad in?
He was in the Army. He was a paratrooper.
Do you know what Army stands for?
Oh, Lord.
No, Lord. I don't know.
Aren't ready for Marines yet.
Well, I'll tell my dad that. I'm sure that he'll take that real to heart. I'm sure he'll be real affected by that. But Brock, you said you've been watching some 90s movies lately. So when we reached out to you and asked you to come on the pod, this kind of fit like right in because what, 3 of these are 90s movies? So did you? Yeah. You said your wife watched. We were talking beforehand. Your wife watched Speed and then also Point Break with you. Did she watch any of these or no?
She watched the ending of Shawshank. She's like, I don't think I've seen this. She's like, it was like 1 a.m. when I was finishing up. She's like, no, wait a second. He crawls the shit and gets out. I'm going to bed. I'm like, okay, good night. That was like, so she did remember it. But yeah, no, and then I watched Misery too, snuck that in. But yeah, like, so I love the feel of the 90s movies. We watched Speed and it was so refreshing to see a film shot on location, like in LA, like the graininess. And I'm going to sound old. Movies nowadays, that a lot of that stuff would have been done with green screen and just like, I love Keanu Reeves. Like, he's not the best actor, but his line delivery is like, we were cracking up. We had such a good time just because it's like such a moment. Like Sandra Bullock killing it, and he just comes in with some line and just, absolutely is in the butt. Yeah, I love the 90s, man. There's a lot of good movies, which, some of these I would consider really good movies from the 90s too. So I'm excited to talk about it for sure.
The average action movie from that era just stomps out the average action movie now.
Oh, absolutely.
I just watched the fucking Gorge.
Oh
my God.
Yeah.
It's just horrible, man. Like, it's horrible. Yeah. I don't watch these streaming movies. Everyone said it was good, so I was like, I'll watch it. It was atrocious.
I have a theory as to why that is. Do you think it's because, I mean, it's not like 40s or 50s, like the 30s, but do you think it's because there were less safety protocols, so they could be like more risky when it came to those movies?
partially, but also just like they're just more real, and like I feel like the action is better choreographed. There tends to be better storylines, like more engaging storylines, and I feel like a lot of what we see now feels like you fed a computer these old movies and we're like, make something like. There's just nothing behind any of it. It's just not that there aren't good action movies. The average now I think is worse than it used to be.
I would agree. And a lot of them hit streaming. Like a movie like Speed, I'm like, this would go straight to streaming today. Like, there's no way that would have gotten into theaters. But yeah, I agree.
I mean, Brock, you were worried about movies being shot, on site. Don't worry, Vin Diesel is doing his part for Hollywood and bringing the Fast and Furious franchise back to Los Angeles.
Oh yeah,
That's like you could see the progression of action movies there, because I think the original movies were, or the first couple movies were very practical. There was a lot more practicality to them, and then the bigger they go, the less more CGI integration there has to be, kind of a thing, which is just makes sense. No, they also probably didn't drive in those snowy caps. I haven't watched the space one. We just watched the snow one for the Dwayne Johnson episode.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I will say though, Brock, while I was thinking about it, I think, in my opinion, Speed might be the best performance I've ever seen from Keanu. But I don't know if this makes sense.
Have you seen Point Break?
I have not seen Point Break.
Put that on the list.
But I will say it's the worst dialogue, and I don't know if that can be simultaneous at the same time. Best performance with the worst dialogue.
No, I would agree.
Not the worst dialogue. There's bad dialogue, but I will say whatever he's doing in Bram Stoker's is not the best. Does not fit.
He was pretty good too in the Jack Nicholson movie, and like it's like the rom-com, as good as it, not as good as Something's Got to Give. He was pretty solid. He was like a doctor in that. But yeah, I would agree. Like it's the most Keanu. Like he delivers everything the best he can.
Yeah, I respect the guy, especially just how like he seems like genuine, which is really rare in Hollywood. So maybe we'll do an episode on him. We'll have to have him back on. But you guys want to get into Stephen King? I believe our first film we're going to talk about in chronological order is Misery.
Yeah.
Came out in 1990, directed by Rob Reiner, who has directed a couple films that people might know: The Princess Bride, A Few Good Men, which I just watched not too long ago, Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally. It's fun that we're having Brock on because me and Brock have been like texting back and forth the last couple of days about our VHS tapes. And it was cool because I got Misery. Oh, I was gonna play it in the background. Maybe I should do that while we're talking. But you got some more VHS?
No, that's for you. That's your package.
Oh yeah. This guy's sending me VHS tapes. I don't want to spoil what he's sending me, but it meant a lot to me that he was doing that. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I popped Misery in. Obviously, this is the movie that one of the very few movies that a horror film has won an Oscar for, with Kathy Bates. But I think people probably know what this is about, but it's a pretty simple story about, James Caan is a famous author who has this ritual. I believe it's in Colorado, where he goes out to this cabin, writes his story, his next book that he's going to do. And on the way back from doing that, gets in a car crash in the snow. And to his rescue is none other than Annie Wilkes. Is it Wilkes? Annie Wilkes? Yeah.
Wilkes.
Is it Wilkes? I think it should be Wilkes. That sounds better.
No, it doesn't.
It matches her personality, which is wild. But yeah, so what? Yeah. Anyway, so she's not what she appears to be at the beginning. Appears to help him out, and stuff happens. It seems like our boy James Caan is in a little bit of misery himself. I think that title is fitting for the movie. But I had not seen this before. Had all of you guys? Probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Connor. So what did you think about this? And then I guess I can go and we can, naturally progress how we think about this movie from our perspectives.
Well, two of these movies made me like cringe super hard this week, and it was this one and Gerald's Game. But this one, dude, the scene where she snaps his ankles in half is like one of the most painful scenes I've ever watched on screen. And like, it's really not that bad, but like just imagining being in that situation,
they changed that to make her more sympathetic, because in the book she just cuts off his foot, and they thought that if she breaks his ankles, and this might be a hot take, I would prefer you chop off one of my feet than do what she did to him.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
You can just get like a prosthetic or something, like not just, but you can get a prosthetic. That would have been like, I don't know how he recovered from what she did to him. And
Yeah,
to me, that was way more like horrifying, but they changed that from the book. I don't know.
No, yeah. I would have much rather have my feet cut off. I would have rather seen that on screen than whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah.
Because that was, and like, it's only for like a split second on screen, but the way his foot just flops around.
No.
Hey, I broke my ankle fibula 2020. That was cringe to watch again last night. Oh man.
Well, I was wondering about it because I was wondering if Dan had like PTSD because currently his ankle's like messed up.
Yeah, dude, ankles are so tough to heal. I had surgery at the start of 2024. Yeah, January last year. I had surgery, and it's still like messed up. I probably need to get another one, but they're so finicky, and I got hurt 2 years ago. So it's just it sucks. But like with what she did to him, and also just his injuries in general, like I don't think there's any way he ever would have healed or walked ever again. Like I don't know if he's at the end. Is he like wheelchair? I don't think he's like wheelchair bound.
No, he had a cane.
Like I don't. He's got to be like Wolverine or something.
Especially, I'm pretty sure it says like a year or like 16 months or 18 months later. Like I don't think that's enough
both
time.
His legs were broken, and then his ankles were just sideways. So I don't know. Yeah, sorry, I derailed you there. I'm sorry, but
no, you're good. I mean, I'm fully on board. I'm like, but other than that, understandable why she won an Oscar for this. But Stone, what did you think for your first watch?
I think Dan mentioned this maybe when we were live. Kathy Bates is really funny in this movie. She's hilarious, especially there's the one scene, I think it's the very first time you see the pig, and she's like snorting, and then she like turns the or oinky, I don't know what she's doing, but she like turns to James Caan and she does it. I'm not gonna do it. The guys rattle me a lot, Brock, that I do impressions and stuff. I'm not gonna do snorting Kathy Bates on here, even though I want to. But very funny. And also it's the fact that she's not all the time insane. She's just like bipolar. Whenever he has like a little critique about something that doesn't go her way, she just goes off and just pissed about it, which I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was just going to be, she was just kind of, well, she is evil, but, kind of just insane the entire time. But there are like moments where she's more reserved. And I thought that was really nice for, keeping the intensity of the film high, because you never know when she's kind of going to go off. When it came to his legs, though, I thought this would have been a nice twist. I thought that we were going to find out that she broke his legs when he was passed out of the car. Like that actually didn't happen to him. And that way he couldn't leave. But then we got the whole sequence of her like killing babies, which that came out of nowhere for me. And I was like, oh shit, she's psychotic. Was not expecting that at all. But yeah, very, very good. I want some respect, though. I got to talk about this because it's the one thing I took away from this, the main thing right after I got done watching this. Respect for my boy Buster. I got really upset that there was no closure for Buster's situation.
He got rocked.
The sheriff literally just got blown away, and then it was kind of cute. I liked the relationship between him and his wife. Like, I thought their chemistry was really, I don't know, natural, but it was like funny too. These two people have been married for obviously a really long time, just bickering back and forth. I think there's one scene where she like reaches over and like grabs his leg when they're going down the road. He goes, Virginia, when you are on this car with me, you are not my wife, you are my deputy. I thought that was really good. But yeah, he just gets blown away. No closure for my guy, and that's sad. But I thought they were the nice like side characters of this movie. Like I thought they were perfect. They were just perfect. You needed just a little bit more than James Caan and Kathy, and he got that. And I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Kathy Bates is one of the best actors of her generation, and like she came up as a theater actor. And it's funny because her and James Caan are very different in terms of like their acting styles. She's someone who's very big on like repetition and practice and rehearsal and all that. James Caan's just like, I just want to wing this. Like he's just very fluid. So I think they kind of clashed there, which I think probably made the movie better because there's like probably was some actual, maybe not animosity, but tension between them over the performance, whatever. But she's just crushing this, and I think the intention was for her to be a bit sympathetic, which, you know, I mean, she's mentally ill, and it is what it is. There's definitely a lot of people like that just end up really isolated, and just things get worse and worse. But it's really hard to feel sorry for her, especially towards the end, and especially like once he finds that book, it's sort of like this is just a genuine monster. But she's just so much fun to watch act in anything she's in. I feel like she just brings so much effort and intensity. So
that's good. She's kind of like Pesci for me. They're like, I'm just now getting into their filmography because, like, for Pesci, I only saw Home Alone for like the first 20 years of my life, and her, I've only seen her in Waterboy up until the last couple of years. So it's like funny seeing these actors in like a role that doesn't really challenge them that much versus now seeing them in stuff like this and being like, oh wow, they're actually like.
But even in Waterboy, she's like crushing. Like,
no, I know, and I agree.
It's a memorable like part of that movie.
Oh, I love Waterboy.
Yeah, but I feel like Misery is a bit more of a challenge than Waterboy to play.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and she's from Memphis, so like the southern kind of lady was, I think, in her wheelhouse.
Brock, did you get to watch this week? I don't know if we gave you enough time.
You did actually. Yep. I watched this and Shawshank last night after Speed. I was like, let's just do it. I mean, I'm a dad. I operate on limited sleep anyway. Like, it's just good. 4 hours and I'm good. My wife's like, you're insane. I'm like, this is true. Yeah, I did. And so my experience with this movie is like I saw the TV version growing up a lot. You know, like AMC. Like I feel like this AMC and TNT is a very vivid memory of this movie being on a lot. And then when I got older, I was able to watch it, like obviously like the full uncut version, like getting to see the sledgehammer scene for the first time is crazy. But the thought I had last night, I'm curious what you guys think about this, and call me crazy, but we all talk, you know, about popular franchises a lot on the internet. I'm like, this could be redone today with like a Marvel fan or like a Star Wars fan if they got a hold of like a writer or like a director and how crazy some of those fan bases are. I mean, the discourse wasn't too bad on Captain America Brave New World, but I was pretty sick of it pretty quick. And I was just like, you know, when people can't separate the reality from a source material, you know, it can be very dangerous, obviously, as we saw, you know, in this movie. But I mean, great performance by Kathy Bates. And I remember hearing, I don't know if you guys know, like there was a lot of like big name actors who passed on James Caan's role just because of the fear of Kathy Bates. Her performance ultimately she overshadows and overtakes the movie. But because I know, like, I think Dustin Hoffman passed on it. I think De Niro and Harrison Ford, those were some names
Jack Nicholson.
I know.
Yeah, I got to pull it up. Kevin
Okay,
Kline,
cool.
Michael Douglas, Harrison Ford, Dustin Hoffman, De Niro, Pacino, Richard Dreyfuss, Gene Hackman, and Robert Redford.
Jack was one. Jack was like choice one, but he didn't want to do it because of he had already done the Shining, and like it's funny because I think James Caan turned down Cuckoo's Nest, so it's kind of a funny little reciprocal thing there. But yeah, I mean, Jack would have been great, but
I'll say I haven't watched James Caan in too many things, but it's funny when I wonder if this is the movie that directly inspired him being in Elf, because it's kind of the same thing, right? It's just James Caan being a very straight man looking at this weirdo, just like, right? That's like Kathy Bates is, you know, Buddy the Elf kind of a thing. He's just like, what is this weirdo doing right now to me? I mean, it kind of fits. So,
which is definitely
Kathy Bates didn't tickle him at all.
True. I think James Caan has a very expressive face. Like, I think he's able to convey a lot of what he's thinking and a lot of his emotions just with like facial expressions, which I think is really hard, and I think a lot of actors maybe don't necessarily have that. I think he's really, really good at that, and that's like you need that here because it's this movie really has to grab you and keep a hold of you, like, because it's only in one location. It's like it could be repetitive and then kind of boring. But I mean, I think there's a lot of inspiration like from Hitchcock here in terms of like maintaining the tension, and like you said, Stone, her ability to flip like and it's especially terrifying because his life is also dependent on her as like a nurturing person. Like, she is taking care of him, she does a lot for him, but when the person you're relying on to take care of you then can become a monster and you can't do anything about it, like that is very, very scary. It was a great premise, but I also know Stephen King basically wrote this about. I mean, Stephen King was dealt with, I think, a variety of drugs, but like he talked about this being basically about coke, and about like the writing process and dealing with addiction, and I think that kind of like pushed him into a lot of his writing, but also that becomes really volatile. But I think this was probably also very therapeutic for him as a writer, just like, dealing with how, and I think in his own career, when he tried to kind of get outside the horror genre, he got a lot of pushback from his fans. And I think just the idea of, actually loving what you're creating and, actually having creative freedom and feeling like you can make what you want. I feel like anyone who creates anything, thinks about that stuff and worries about it. But it's interesting because the experience also almost becomes freeing in a way. Like, when he actually starts writing, he's like really getting after it and like locks in, and like he seems like someone who, and he says at the end, like, this experience, like he's kind of almost like grateful for it, like as a writer. And it's very interesting. I think it's a very meta story for Stephen King, but he wrote this essentially with her as a stand-in for addiction. So I thought that was interesting.
For me, like, one thing that you're kind of mentioning it, which is true, but I wish there was more, and maybe it's tough because it's a one location film, but I wish there was a little bit more interesting elements to James Caan's character, because maybe it is subtle, like you're saying. There are moments while he's in the house that he does seem like he's enjoying what he's writing and really gets passionate about it. But to me, it's just, you have, the little introduction of his character at the very beginning, the fact that he doesn't want to be writing these misery stories, which is why he kills misery, right? He wants to be doing something else. And then that's the biggest development for him, really, is the fact that he does that at the end, right? He does write something for himself, something that he wants to do. That is, I mean, it carries through really well, but for me, like, I wish we would have known a little bit more about his life, and that would have affected him somewhat. Maybe that's too much I'm asking for. Like, he keeps mentioning all the time that his daughter's going to be worried about him. He mentions that very frequently, but we never see his daughter. It's just something he keeps saying, so I don't know. I think there could have been a little bit more development when it comes to him, different areas of his life that could have been highlighted. That could add to his character, rather than just, I'm happy that this experience, gave him the push he really needs. But maybe that's all Stephen King really needed when it came to his personal experience with writing the story.
No, I'm happy you brought that up, because literally when I was like kind of rating this, I was like, I wish we could have taken like 10, 15 minutes in the beginning and developed the relationship with his daughter. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but did we see her or meet her? Or is that just like a figment of our imagination?
No, we don't meet her. The only person we meet is like his editor, I believe, or whoever that woman is.
Editor or agent, one of the two. So I think if we added like 10 minutes and just like developed a little bit of like a relationship or just another character right there, it would have been more impactful.
Like, does he have a wife? Like, maybe you could have made him have a crazy wife or like an ex-wife and that could have been interesting. Like, oh, now you have this another woman controlling him and stuff like that. That maybe could have been something that him and his daughter could connect with. Also, is that their mother, is not in their life anymore because of certain reasons, and then Kathy Bates comes in and controls him. I don't know. I feel like there's something there that could have been added.
One thing I would have changed here is I wish there was a little bit more build up and time before you see, like, okay, she's completely insane. Like, she like really snaps on him pretty early, and I wish. And this is like a little thing, but I just wish there had been a little bit more of a gradual build up as you were seeing like cracks in her. And obviously, like if you're watching it today, you understand most likely the premise and you know where it's going. But I think like
I didn't.
Okay, yeah. So I think if I didn't have that knowledge of what it was, like the first time I watched it, I think that would have made it a little better for me. But I still enjoy just getting to see her act and go off. So.
Like I said, I think it would have been like a nice little plot twist if you found out that she like broke his legs. Like how like fucked up would that have been? If she's like, she like you're like you're saying, Dan, she does put up, a fake front at first for a longer amount of time. And then when she does eventually snap, she just confesses like, hey, I'm taking care of you. I'm being sweet to you and all this stuff. And then just breaks down and says like, you could have left, but I know that I'm the one for you. I want you here. And this is why I did this. That would have been like that book that you found, like 2.0. That would have been like 2 huge plot twists. That would have been really effective.
Do you think more close-ups on her face would have been more effective?
No, those are awesome. I was gonna say those are my favorite, like cinematography wise. There's so many uncomfortable shots, like zooms whenever she snaps. It's so good, so good.
Those push-in zooms, yeah. It's like where she's like realizing, like, I agree with Dan with like, it's like I think it's like 15 minutes in where you start to see like the first little crack. It's like, oh, okay, we're kind of getting into it a little bit. But I mean, the movie's only 100, something minutes, so maybe they felt like they just kind of had to tell the audience like, hey, this is what's getting ready to happen. I did find it interesting that Stephen King wrote this in 87, and then it was the movie came out in 1990. I don't know how soon, like if that's like the quickest like adaptation of one of his novels, but I think that's pretty quick.
I don't know. It seems like one of his novels get adapted like every year or so.
For sure.
I was thinking another thing that's really creepy about the performance is like the way she talks. She uses a lot of little like made up words. Like she's like, you didn't get out of the cockadoo car. She just improvised that, but she almost feels like someone that got stuck as like a kid, and she doesn't want to like curse and this and that, and it that makes it very much more unsettling and upsetting, upsettling if you will. That's a good word.
Yeah, there you
go. But all her little like mannerisms and it's like the little details of the performance that like didn't need to be there but just make it that much better.
Yeah, I one of my favorite scenes is she was like, can I be honest? Like when she talked about the language and then like she just starts to lose it. You think people just go to the store and just say, can I have one of those done? Like I'm like, oh shit. Like she's I really enjoy that. And I hadn't seen it in a long time. I'm like, oh damn, like yeah, she really lost it. She's like, people don't talk like that. I'm like, oh shoot.
I'll say one moment for me that stood out just because I'm in the medical field, and I wrote this on my Letterboxd review, was that scene where she's like staring out the window, and I think she's telling James Caan about like her husband or something like that. And then she turns around, she goes, "You finished?" And he was like peeing in a urinal, and he's like sitting there like talking to him, and she like is just wiggling this urinal with urine back and forth like above him, and he's just like you said, he's really good at facial reactions, Dan. He's just like watching her like shouldn't you dump that kind of a thing? Like, what are you doing? Like, as being a hospital, I mean, I dumped like 10 urinals last night. It's like the fact that she's not even like wearing gloves just like icks me, like gives me the ick. Like,
God bless you, Stone. I can't do body fluids. Like we're potty training my daughter. Yeah, we're potty training my daughter right now, and my wife's like, because she peed on the floor, last week, and I'm like, I can't do it. I'm calling a wuss. It's disgusting.
Don't get a dog.
I think we should keep moving, but I think one last thing I wanted to say was the other thing about James Caan's performance is like so much of it is reliant on his ability to convey pain. Like you need to feel like he is in immense pain, especially when he's like dragging himself around, and like he is so good at that, and like his legs are always just kind of like limp behind him. It just looks like so incredibly painful, and like you're able to feel a lot of empathy for him, even though he's not the best or most likable or interesting guy, but he's just pretty flat. But yeah, and I think the ending of the book is a lot darker. Like I think he like basically became an alcoholic and like kind of a drug addict to like get through the pain, and he's kind of like struggling with that and like has a breakdown. And you still get a little bit of that with like the hallucination and like the trauma like being shown, but it's not quite as dark. So I think it's a good ending because she's still there in a way, but it's not like he's, completely broken. So
I don't
I'm
know.
glad
I
you
really
mentioned
like
that.
that ending because you like think you're done, and like now he's going to dinner with, I think that was his agent, and like you're like, all right, cool, we can chill now, and then like she just reappears,
yeah,
and like it's immediately intense again. I really like that part.
It makes
yeah.
sense too
Oh no,
why he's like envisioning her too, because she goes, "I'm your number one fan." It's like, oh, Jesus, poor guy.
Yeah, he started that before. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned James Caan's physical performance, Dan, because I remember like just thinking about him, like because he crawls on the ground multiple times. Like he's really, giving it his all here, which is really impressive. Um, one more thing, I like that the beginning of the movie tied into like how he killed her. Like I think the first shot you see is of the cigarette that he smokes when he's like writing the book, and then you kind of forget about that. At least I did. That could have been something that he does all the time. And then she goes, he's like, you know what I need? I need three things. She goes, oh yes, I do. Sorry. She's so good at this. Oh, so funny. She's just like this
also,
giddy schoolgirl.
also in the book, I think she like survives and crawls out a window and goes to the bar and gets a chainsaw and is coming back to kill him with the chainsaw, and then like she dies at that point. But she's tough to kill. And like Kathy Bates, like she's like a big, like strong lady. Like you believe she's like scared. Like she is imposing as hell in this. And like I feel like the way she's framed, like you're not just like, oh, he can overpower her. Like he can't. And that makes it like that much.
I mean, they literally have like a physical. I mean, even though his legs are, and he's both of his arms are working to full capacity. I mean, they're like wrestling at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of which, another scene that made me like wince was when her head just went like straight into the typewriter.
Oh yeah,
That was
good.
brutal.
Good sound design there.
Yeah.
What do you guys have this rated as?
4 stars.
I also have
4. 4 stars for me as well.
4.5, guys.
Oh, okay.
Take it. But we can get into the next film if you all want. This was my pick.
Wild.
What'd you say?
Saying take it is wild.
Sorry. I mean, 4.5. I think that's the correct rating. So, but I don't. I mean, I described what Misery was about, or I gave a plot synopsis. I don't think I'm going to do that here with Shawshank Redemption. Speaking of which, there's a lot that happens in this movie, but I could be vague about the plot. Just give a brief synopsis. But I'm really curious, Dan. What was it about this time? Because you mentioned to us, I think beforehand, that this was the first time, I think in your words, you phrased it like that Shawshank worked for you, that actually had an effect on you. I don't know how many times you watched this movie, but what was it about this that you think that what's changed about you, how you view movies, maybe in your life that, brought something new out of this story?
I've always struggled with Andy Dufresne as a character. I've oftentimes watched this and found him to be kind of relatively uninteresting and just someone that I kind of have a hard time connecting with or even cheering for. So then when it gets to the end, haven't necessarily felt that, I guess, kind of feeling you're supposed to have. But I honestly just think I was kind of wrong about a lot of it. I've watched it. I've probably seen it like 5 or 6 times before in my life. I maybe watched it a year or two ago, but I just genuinely really enjoyed it. And I think when you look at kind of the effect that Andy is able to have on the entire environment, it really is massive. And I think like breaking down every single thing he does, even with the idea of like he doesn't want people to forget their humanity. And I think the way this movie focuses on like the arts, like the scene with the music, for example, with the opera, where he's playing it to them and reminding them like, people create beautiful things. Like everything is not this. Like you're still a person. You can still enjoy this music. And that scene's kind of like a little moment of like rebellion, where he knows he's going to be punished for it, but he just wants to share that. And then that turns into, in a bigger way, he gets to work on the library, and like people being able to dive into books is another way to escape the situation and pass time, but it's also a way to educate themselves, maybe gain perspective, and that just becomes like such a passion for him. And just, I mean, the way the narrative is tied up, like the way every single little detail plays into his plan at the end, and it all kind of progressively builds. I like the fact that you don't know he's building the tunnel, because if they made this today, they'd show you him building the tunnel half the fucking movie, and it's like, I've seen that before. I want to see the human aspects of this story. I love the. I think in the book, the warden doesn't exist. There's like a few wardens. He ended up being kind of a compilation, but I think he's a really effective villain. I think he was kind of modeled after Nixon, as this person who presents himself as like holier than thou and this and that, but is actually incredibly corrupt and full of it. The way he kind of hides behind, the Bible is
literally in front of the safe. Literally in front of the safe.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's just, it's beautiful. Meanwhile, literally the tool that's being used to save Tim Robbins is hidden in the Bible, which is kind of funny. And I also feel like this is very much like it's a pretty religious movie. Like, he's very much a Christ figure, and the people around him are very much kind of like his disciples. And I like that it's a movie about kind of actual faith and like living out kind of Christ-like ideals, while you're also presented with like organized religion and like the system and how that's used to prop up like this prison and how horrible things are, just to control people. And like, that's what it shows you, like faith at its worst and best. And I just think it's really effective. I mean, the ending is it ties everything up in a neat little bow. It's very like feel good, but like sometimes I find that annoying. This time watching it, I didn't. So I'm sorry that was a lot, but I just like this a lot more than I have previously.
It's easy to tie it up when it's Morgan Freeman as well. Like, when you see like Morgan Freeman be happy, it just feels good. I maybe that's oversimplifying it, but I like that how it wrapped up. How do you guys feel? Because he is a murderer, right?
Andy?
So, no, not Andy.
Red.
Red. Right.
Okay.
So I don't know, especially with also, maybe this like goes a little bit into the Green Mile as well. But like, how do you guys feel about, feeling this way about people who have killed individuals, right? Do you think this should have been maybe less black and white? Like, I think we all, like, everyone likes Red, right? But I guess you can just understand that he is in fact like in the speech. Like, I guess that, his final speech, right? He changes it. He just keeps reciprocating the same thing over and over again, 20, 30 years, 40 years. But then he finally is like, I don't give a shit anymore. Like, this is who I am, kind of a thing. I don't know. Do you feel any hesitation for what he's done? Or I guess that's what the board is for. Do you feel like you're on the board and you're judging him based on what you have seen in the movie as well, and you're able to forgive him or pardon him?
I don't think any of us are the same person we were when we were like 18 or 20. Your brain doesn't even finish developing until you're 25. So like, no, I don't feel any difficulty there, because who he is the person he shows himself to be throughout the course of the movie. And I think like, we all change over time, and he doesn't even show like a single crack really in who he is. He's just an old man now. It's tough to say. I think some crimes are so heinous that maybe it doesn't really matter what you do and there's no real rehabilitation. But I think if someone makes a single mistake out of stupidity or whatever, and then they genuinely show that they're different over a long period of time, like, can you continue to judge them? I think there's so many examples of that in our society. Like, Mike Vick, I think, is a great example. He played in Philly, and he did heinous stuff, right? Like to dogs and animals, and then he went to prison and he served years, and then he got out and he poured his life into causes for animals and being different and changing, and he did that every day, and that's who he is now. And if someone makes a genuine choice to change and then lives that, how can you say oh no, you're garbage, you did that. Like,
Right.
at what point is it just unnecessary, especially when someone goes to prison? Like, it's just, it's tough. At the same time, it is awful, and but I just think there's more nuance in life than just black and white often.
Yeah, I was also thinking, we don't know the full circumstances behind it. Like, I think if it was maybe a planned out, like, true murder, maybe I wouldn't be on his side. Or if it was, the first thing, honestly, that popped into my head when you said that is the movie Bernie Stone. Because, like, for the most part, he's a very good person that just gets pushed to the edge. And then, like, but I feel like at the end of that movie, you still, like, in your head think Bernie is a good person, even though he has committed this horrible act.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I think that with his monologue there, like just saying like, I can't go, realizing where I'm at. And I'm like, man, there's some things I would have loved to have told my 15, 16-year-old self, for sure. Like, and said, we're not the same people there. And I think it's all, you got to review it, but like, there's probably some things I probably, not that I'm admitting crimes and goodwill podcasting if the FBI or anyone's listening, but I'm like, I did some stupid stuff that I probably, should have gotten away with, or just things that were stupid. And just like looking back, I'm like, God, like, I have a son. I'm like, I hope my kids never do any of that. And I'm going to make sure that, they don't. And I like that he just kind of accepts it, there at the end. I was just going to say, like, with the ending, to me, this is like one of the most satisfying like in movie endings, like the last like 20-25 minutes. It's just so satisfying. Like I just had a big old smile on my face, and honestly I did get choked up at the end with Red and Andy. I'm like, damn. I'm like, this is good, and I also missed too where like movies would just cut to the cast would just start rolling on like a scene, like you just hold it. I'm like, I love that shit. I don't know why, just nostalgic. But yeah, I got a funny story for you guys about Clancy Brown too. Whatever, if you want to talk about his character, I could dive into that now too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so he's from my hometown where I grew up in for about 10 years, Urbana, Ohio. Shout out to Urbana. No one's probably listening, but shout out to y'all. And so, 2007. That is the height of a certain Nickelodeon show called SpongeBob SquarePants. And he came and visited the school. And like, that was like crazy. And we're like, oh my gosh, like it's Mr. Krabs, and like, he's talking like this real serious voice. And then like, right at the end, I think I was in fourth grade. He was like doing some of the voice. He's like, all right, everyone. He's like, Mr. Terrible, Mr. Krabs impression. Say, make sure you guys stay in school and, get a good job so you can make all the money. And I think like 3 days later, I got in trouble for like a fight at school. And I'm like, so apparently that speech didn't work too much. Like I remember that, like just in fourth grade to get in trouble. But like, I remember my dad saying like, hey, like, because Shawshank was like one of the first like rated R movies my dad let me watch, which is kind of crazy to think about. But he's like, hey, like that's Captain Hadley. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, that's Mr. Like, and Clancy Brown. This is one of his first big roles, huge career, great career, and it was funny seeing him so young. And I'm like, I remember when he came to school. Super nice guy. He's done a lot for the community too, which is really cool as well. So shout out to Clancy Brown.
All right. Well, also shout out to Brock and I, because Shawshank was filmed at a prison not too far from us.
Yeah, I've been there, Mansfield Prison, which is crazy.
I went there. Is that what you did in high school? Is that why you're there for what you did in high school, Brock?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
Hey, also,
that's cool that you make Clancy though.
Also, where Lil Wayne shot his first Big Songs music video.
Hell yeah.
There you go. Shout out Lil Wayne if you're listening.
Lil Wayne's a moron.
I will say, yeah,
he makes some good music.
Clancy was a good second villain of the movie.
There's never been a better
I like that what you were saying
history than Real G's moving Silence Like Lasagna.
Yeah, but he hasn't made good music in like since his brain melted out of his ears. Like,
yeah,
the song last year was great.
Screw all the people while we're on Lil Wayne. Screw all the people that said he would have done a better job than Kendrick. Get the hell out of here. Stop it.
Who was asking for that? Like,
people who are casual rap fans. Casuals.
Look, his song last year was good, Dan. That's all I'm saying.
Which song?
Brand New with Tyga.
Never heard
Okay. No, moving on. Please.
Yeah, I was trying to like come back on Shawshank, but then you're like, oh wait, Super Bowl. So I will say, Dan, I really liked how you opened this though, talking just about Andy's character because he is so different, and I guess that's his thing, right? He acts so strangely in this movie compared to everyone else, and that's why he's kind of captivating. I feel like he's either captivating or you could look at him as a little bit boring. But I think maybe the most important character for that can be paired with his mindset of being in prison in general is Brooks, right? Because Brooks shows you what your life can be like outside of prison without somebody like Andy. Because obviously he gets out there, and because Andy, he served many, many years. I think he served like 50 or 60 years. And obviously not all that time has been with Andy. So when he gets out there, because everyone in that prison has the mindset that we don't need to care about the outside world anymore, all we know is in here, it drives him to insanity. It drives him to suicide. So I love how you can see the change that Andy has brought to these men through Red, right? Because Red is in the exact same room as Brooks, right? And might be thinking about that exact same thing. But because of what Andy has shown him, and what goodness there still can be in the world and how you should look at it and look at the hope that there's always hope there, no matter where you are, if it drives him not to do that anymore. And I think that's just like so powerful.
I think the aspects of culture and like literature and music, like that is exactly what we saw with Sing Sing last year. And that stuff reminding people you're a human, you can be good. You don't have to I think oftentimes prison is a place where maybe people who are somewhere in the middle or go and become worse because they're surrounded by people that are worse than them, people that are killers, people that teach them how to be better criminals, people that build connections for them with bad people while they're in prison. Then they get out, and what are you going to do? You're going to gravitate towards that same exact thing. But I think when you can, prison is not designed to actually help anyone, right? It's to make money. And I love that the movie shows, it shows them being used essentially as slave labor, which still happens today. I mean, there are firefighters in California getting paid $5 an hour that are prisoner inmates, and they're saving lives and they're doing work. But that's how people get used. And I like that the movie addresses all of that corruption, and you literally have the warden murdering someone because it would expose his schemes and the way he's and the warden is using Andy, someone who's actually intelligent and actually capable, and what is the warden? He's just his power that he has, and that's it.
Bible believing, man.
Yeah.
The one issue I have, the issues I have with Andy, he was sitting there with the gun, right? He was thinking about doing that. That's something where I have a complete disconnect with that. If someone's cheating on you, just walk away from that person. It's not even worth it's not even worth a thought. That person does not respect you. Don't even. I just don't understand any type of reaction at all. So just the idea of him even thinking about that obviously is very evil, but also just what are you doing? Just move on with your life. It's not.
Can I say something
Sure.
I don't think I get it from the perspective. I'm not saying that I would ever do this. Just one, the FBI. We know the FBI is listening to us now. Brock, said it.
Yep.
So I get it if he was maybe just going to take out his anger on the person, on a pro golfer, right?
Wow.
He hates
that. What does that do?
No, actually, yeah, I completely. Why is anyone ever mad at the other dude? Maybe he didn't even know.
There's no reason to feel any emotion ever towards the person that you got cheated on with. They're not responsible for you. They're not responsible for you. The person you chose to be with was a bad choice by you. You got to deal with that. But just keep moving. No,
that's easier said than done, my guy.
Yeah.
I mean, though, is it though?
I don't think
it's not worth your energy because
I don't think the majority of people are blocking out their anger like that.
I think it's kind of a sense of control. I don't know. Maybe it's a sense of control because like when something like that happens, like you just kind of spiraled out. I mean,
Didn't he say he was just going to scare them? I even believe he said he was just going to scare them.
But he was drunk. He was drunk though. He was drunk. Yeah.
I just think it's wasted energy. Like anything you do in life, is what is the end purpose or what is the end result? And if that's not worth your time, like just it's not even worth. I don't know.
Well, obviously, we don't know how
a little annoying, but
obviously we don't know how Andy Dufresne is as a person, like before that happened. But I mean, there is a lot of people that look for happiness in someone else rather than being happy with them. So I mean, if that is your sole happiness, is this partner, your spouse that you put all of your energy into to be happy, that might be how they justify it in their head, or like how they get to that breaking point after that happens.
The other thing is he caused the cheating. And he straight up says that. He's a shitty husband. And I'm pretty sure he tells her, like, if you leave me, I'll kill myself or something.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a good man or a good husband, and he drives her into the cheating. And then he wants to be angry about it. This is the stuff where I'm just like, I don't particularly like this character, but again, the movie is about his redemption, and that's kind of the point. So I get it, but like he's a terrible husband, and he knows that at least in the movie. So
I think the one, like, it's really quick, but one thing you can also see that he regrets, like what he did that night, is the fact of the scene of them on the roof and them, him giving the beers to everyone and him saying, "Oh no, I gave up drinking." And we saw him in that scene drinking, right? So he realizes like, I should never do this again because I almost did something that I would have regretted forever. He would have, I guess he would have still got out. I mean, he escaped, but I was about to say he wouldn't have ever got out, but he would have because, he was digging away. But obviously it would have been a completely different story.
Yeah, and I think, like, I guess that was important to realize too, because he obviously was like very drunk in that scene. And I think like there are a lot of people out there that just straight up shouldn't drink alcohol. Like alcohol deals with everyone differently, and like you got to understand what it does to you. And like if you can't handle it, just don't do it. It's not.
If alcohol was invented today, no one would drink it.
Alcohol in general is responsible for like so much violence and so many crimes and like DUI, and then like weed is illegal. Weed is illegal and alcohol is legal. Why is that? Like,
weed might be illegal in your state, not ours.
It's legal. It's legal in Ohio. Not that
but like it's. I'm saying it's like it's been like demonized and.
Oh
like,
yeah.
It's just bizarre. Like, and I'm not saying everyone should be smoking weed every day all the time. Like, and I'm not saying it's good for you, but when you compare it to alcohol, it's not worse.
The beer commercials, those gambling commercials, they're all the same. They show you the good times, my guy. They don't talk about you losing millions or thousands of dollars or beating on someone.
I want to see a FanDuel commercial where a guy's wives leave him. That's the kind of commercial I want to see.
Dude, I don't know. Well, you're not in Florida. I was going to say, I can't remember if I've spoken about this on the pod, but in Florida, there's only like one legal sports betting site. So I get that ad, it's like Hard Rock, like sports betting or something. Yeah, something like that. And I think I told Dan this, but I used to like Post Malone and his music quite a bit, but he is in that commercial. And I would, every time I watch a YouTube video, it was that commercial. And I just started hating him because I hate sport. If you have the money, I guess sports gambling is fine, but I think it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to get into, especially if you're not smart. So, and just that fact, I'm like, Post, just get out of my face, please. Just let me watch, my recap of Severance, season 2, episode 5. That's all I want to see.
Anything in moderation is good. That's the thing is, I think a lot of people really struggle with self-control. And when you're aware of that and you're aware of how addictive it can be, that's where it becomes predatory, I think. And like it's tough because it really is everywhere you look now. And if you are an addict or if you have an addictive personality, like what are you supposed to do?
It's bad.
So yeah,
I love the commercials where like, you don't need to know a thing about sports. What are we doing?
Yeah. And that commercial I talked about, like with the like voice in the guy's head telling him to bet, I'm like, yo, what are we doing?
Yeah, speaking of which, with my NBA fans, I have a buddy I just talked to the other day, put a bet down for Giannis to win MVP, Bryce Harper to win MVP, and I think Burrow to win MVP. So
cooked. I will say shout out to Luka Doncic for the $500 last night. Thank you. As we're talking like
Holy shit!
39 and a half PRA. Appreciate that.
Dan, I thought about a complaint that you have a lot about modern day movies, and it's crazy how backwards we've gone in a way when it comes to these certain sequences. Obviously, there's many points in this movie where they're insinuating that Andy gets raped, right? But they never show us. They do say sometimes you don't need to see that, right? And I think that they respect the audience and they realize that it is, an intense thing to see on screen. And we can just, show you. Even they say sometimes he got away, but it's crazy. I guess rarely it is appropriate in films, but I feel like even though people are way more outspoken about the Me Too movement and all these things that have happened to a lot of individuals, everyone is thankfully, more, vocal about it. I mean, Brock, you've given your testimony about certain situations and stuff like that, but it's crazy that I feel like films nowadays are more open with showing that for clip reasons. I don't know why.
People like sensationalism.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, I thought this was handled very well, and I forgot about the plot line with the sisters. And it's like less is more. Like I love when movies do that because I think it's better. Leave it up to our imagination. Let us, not picture something horrible, but like we're not stupid. We don't have to be told everything or be shown everything. Like trust your audience to realize, okay, this is prison. He's getting jumped. They're not robbing him, and like I thought, it was handled very well. Like it's probably one of the better movies where I've seen it because I know Dan, you've talked about it, like where they just use it as a shock point, but there's like no development of it. Like they just use it and like doesn't do anything. Movie exactly. It's I hate when movies do that. This was, like I thought the narration was good, and especially like talking about Andy's intelligence, where like that's where it helps him progress. As terrible as a scene as it is, when he's talking about like the bite reflex, I was like, wow. Yeah. That was nice. But then again, once eventually the warden gets him off, and that was good. But it's I've got family members who not to graph detail. I've had family members who've been out of prison, have stayed out of prison. Thankfully, it's a real thing, unfortunately. But I thought the movie handled it with class and very well directed. Yeah, I not to say I enjoyed it, but I appreciated like I said, we don't need to see it.
And you still feel the weight of it on Andy. Like Andy changes.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah.
So it's and I think that scene you just talked about, Brock, is good because like it shows him just fighting back and saying like this is Andy is kind of like a stoic when you look at like his philosophy and how he approaches life. Like he basically takes every situation that occurs and says, this is what's happening. What can I do? What can I control? What can I do about this? What's within my control and what's not? And in that moment, he decides, I'm going to control what I can control here. You might have, power over me, but this is what I can do. And it's a very good scene. And obviously he pays for that, but like he kind of pays for everything he does in this the whole time, but he's still willing to sacrifice over and over. So, he does seem to genuinely care for the guys around him more than himself.
Yeah, I will say, Dan, I'm glad you mentioned this earlier, but this was actually my first time watching this movie. And I love that because my brother has been like, not begging me to watch it, but my brother's like, ever since I started doing TikTok, he's like, when you watching Shawshank? I'm like, I'll get to it, obviously. But I completely agree with the fact that you do not see him digging that tunnel the entire time is so effective.
Yeah.
It's
and the movie
so
has other stuff to do. Like it doesn't need to spend time. You don't need to spend time doing that. Watching him doing that. I think it's like it's way more satisfying at the end. Like
how do you guys like the narration by Morgan?
I think it's really good because it's one of my favorite aspects of this movie that there's a lot of it where with the camera work and Morgan Freeman narrating to you, it almost feels like you're a prisoner in the yard with them or like you're one of their peers. I think that's what makes this movie work a lot of times for me.
And it also fits. It's very much a movie about like, there's a little bit of like, there's a tiny bit of like big fishness in this where it's like a little bit mystical, like to an extent. but I think a lot of that is because it's focused on like storytelling and sitting around the yard talking and like kind of like oral tradition around, you know, this like mythical figure almost for them. But he is, and obviously there's not like magic or something in this. He is a little bit of a mystical figure, and like even the way like, you know, at the end when he crawls through that thing, the pipe of shit, like he would have died. Like there's he simply would be.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't do that, and that's another thing where I've always kind of been like, I find that a little silly because it's physically not possible, but I don't know. I think there was a little bit of sense of like a mystical aspect to Andy that's makes it work, I guess.
I might be an idiot here, but tell me why it's not possible.
Gas, like methane gas.
That's what I was thinking. I just want to make sure because I even thought about that too on my end. But
it's funny you mentioned Dan because like on a lot of websites, I randomly read like just like lists of movies and stuff, and like one of like the plot hole like lists that I often see in this movie is the whole poster thing. Like, how do the guards not catch it? I'm like, I don't agree with that because I think the way that it's set up as well, but a lot of people will disagree that like when they're doing the contraband like checks that they would have.
It's addressed.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also just think he purposely just makes it like, I mean, they're all dudes, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like a perfectly like huge picture of this beautiful woman, and they don't want to rip it down.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think guys are dumb that way, especially these prison guards.
Yeah, it's also just like
it's Marilyn Monroe at one point.
I think it's Rita Hayworth, right? Hayworth?
No, there's like three different women. The second one's Marilyn Monroe, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's also just like so much of this movie is like just repetitive and mundane. And I think when you're used to seeing something, like you don't think about it. Like it just becomes it's part of the wall. Like it's just that doesn't bother me. The only thing that ever bothered me was the pipe, but like whatever. It's a movie. I also think Andy and Red, like it almost feels like it's like not like a sexual relationship, but like a relationship. Like it feels like they like actually like love each other. And even like the journey at the end just to go be with him. Like I don't know. Not
very wholesome, crazy
like fan fiction here, but like, I feel like there's like genuine like love between the two of them and like respect and it's a great friendship, and I definitely a classic movie friendship that I think is really great.
Like I said, it got me choked up at the end. So it worked for me. So if they go bang off screen, dude, in my mind, heck yeah, why not?
Stop. Oh gosh. All right. Yeah.
Me and Andy made sweet love on that.
That's like an end credit thing. Like you said, like the credits run, but as there's the picture in the background, and there's like what's it called? End credit like voiceover, and we made sweet love. Like right at the end.
I shined his shoes so well.
What did you guys rate this?
Hold on, before we move on.
Oh shit! Sorry.
Tom Hanks was originally the one they wanted to play this role, and he turned it down for Forrest Gump. Do you think it would have been any better with Tom Hanks?
I think it would have been worse.
I think it would have been fine. I think it was Tom Cruise too, and Tom Cruise and Harrison Ford was the original.
I didn't know those two. I thought that they originally I think Tom Hanks was the number one pick though.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I think it would have been
a lot of actors could have done this honestly, because the story itself is just satisfying and it's well written. But this was a good pairing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for me, especially out of all those guys, I think Tim Robbins was obviously this is the role that Tim Robbins I think is most known for. So I think it really works the fact that he's like this mystical figure. Like you don't see Harrison Ford, you literally see like Andy Dufresne. You don't see Tom Cruise. I think it really fits, especially maybe watching. I know he's in Jacob's Ladder and Top Gun, but I think like it really works that out of all those people, he was probably the most famous actor.
Well, Harrison Ford was going to be Red, and Tom Cruise would have been Andy. That was.
Oh man.
That also, I'm glad that didn't happen as well.
Yeah, that was Rob Reiner's plan. he was originally going to make this, and those were the two actors he had, and then it ends up being Darabont. So,
how old was Harrison Ford when this came out?
Harrison
I guess
Ford
he was
started
when
his
he got
started
famous,
his
he was
career
an older actor.
Yeah, he was 35, I want to say. This was 94. Harrison Ford would have been.
You're in the 50s. His 50s.
He's born in 42, so yeah.
Wow,
it'll work.
I did not realize Harrison Ford was that old.
Yeah,
he's just fine looking. He's a fine looking man. So it made him look really young. Temple of Doom, woo! Ripped shirt on that bridge.
Hell yeah, my favorite Indiana Jones.
Now that Andy Dufresne, if they had a relationship, I would get it. No offense to Morgan.
Harrison Ford's such an awesome guy, and the only thing on his life, the Carrie Fisher stuff, is so weird. It's so weird, but outside of that, he's had a great life and done a lot of good. That just always is I don't know.
Was he weird with Carrie Fisher?
Dude, she was 18 and she was drunk at a party. And he pulled her out and started making out with her in his car, and then they had a thing. He was married. They had a thing for a few months.
At least she was 18.
Dude, no, stop it.
Sorry.
Go have a conversation.
At least in that sentence.
Tell me how that goes. It's weird.
All right, we got a little. What's the ratings, guys? What's the ratings?
5.
4.5 out of 5 for me.
4.5.
Probably right now I'm sitting at a 4.5. I will say. Maybe I'm leaning maybe towards 5 though.
I was
it's good.
4.5, 5. So, but 5 for me.
That's solid. But Connor, I think did you pick our next one, The Green Mile, right? 1999.
First time watch.
All right. What did you think, my friend? I'll be honest to our audience. I think I'm gonna log off while they have this discussion because I don't think Dan heard this. But basically, the first time ever on Global Podcasting, this is the only time I haven't fully watched one of the movies we're talking about, and I don't want any spoilers because there's some yellow lights that are going off in somebody's hands right now. I'm curious if this will come back later in the story. So, just text me. Have fun talking.
Stone, it's kind of bold of you to peace out though, since Michael Clark Duncan is your celebrity crush.
I love this man. I really do. But
he's a big boy.
You can bring me back when we're just talking about. I love this man. We could, if you just want to talk about him for a while, then we can talk about that. But yeah, just text me.
Wow, you didn't deny that at all. Anyway, yeah, we're picking movies that we haven't seen before, so I picked this one. Not a single ounce of my body was expecting a supernatural element when I went into this.
Oh yeah. What did you think it was going to be? Kind of like a black man, wrongly executed, at the times, the 40s.
Yeah, part of that. Even if he wasn't wrongly executed, in my head I was thinking it was going to be similar to a Shawshank. That maybe he was wrongfully convicted or something, or maybe it was a red situation, he did do it, and since it was the 40s, and a black man, they were gonna execute him because they were harsher on him in the court, something like that. But one of the things I wanted to ask you guys when we were getting into this, do you think it would have been any bit of a benefit to have him be slightly aggressive when he first shows up due to his size and he has to earn their trust like he does? Or do you think it's good that he's just kind of nice right off the rip and
I like the way his character is kind of is because it allows if you feel any type of way, it's just it's because of you.
Yeah.
He is the guy that he is. Also, do you guys know who they thought about casting in that role?
No.
He was an NBA player.
Great.
Shaq?
Yeah, Shaq.
Oh, God, no. Oh, my God. I'm so happy that didn't happen.
That would have been something.
No. The main reason I was asking this is, for me, I was thinking that could have made it slightly better. And he doesn't even have to be aggressive or anything like that, but more a little standoffish, and maybe make a little bit of resentment there. And then I think the scene where he cures Tom Hanks' UTI could have been that much more impactful. The oh, he was just nervous or being standoffish about being here. He is on death row. So, I mean, I can't imagine the emotions people feel there.
No, I liked it. I thought, like, you knew that he didn't do it from the start, but like he is a man that feels so much of pain, people's soul, so he's harboring this big guy is carrying literally so much on him, physically and spiritually. And I like that we can see that. But that's an interesting question though, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the best representations really of like empathy in a movie ever. And I think like, obviously not everyone is like equally empathetic, but I think the amount of kind of pain that he bears and the way he just kind of takes everything for everyone around him, I think is really effective. And it's a really beautiful performance. I think Tom Hanks is really good here. I'm not the biggest Tom Hanks guy, but like I think he's really good. And I mean he is a great actor. I think sometimes he gets a bit of a bit brushed away. When you really look at his career and everything he's done, like it's really impressive. But
that's kind of exactly how I feel about Leo.
I don't think Leo ever gets brushed away.
No, I don't think he ever.
I mean, like, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but his filmography is there.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like, I can't discredit the man. Not the brushed away part.
Did the supernatural aspect of this throw you off at all, or how did you feel about it?
It just caught me off guard, but I wouldn't say it threw me off because it wasn't like anything too like outlandish, I don't think. And it stayed consistent the entire time. Like they didn't try and keep pushing it. I mean, like obviously he was curing bigger and bigger things, which is a bit of a push. But no, I mean, I think it works for this movie and kind of plays into, again, another religious aspect similar to Shawshank, where they're talking about, like this might be one of God's actual saints. I think that really works for the plot as well.
Yeah. I think one of the criticisms of this movie is that like it kind of falls into the like magical Negro trope, and I think like a lot of people feel like this is one of the movies that kind of kicked that off.
Oh yeah.
I mean, do you guys have thoughts on that, or like either in defense or criticism, either way?
It's never bothered me. I've also met people in the African American community where it does, even though this movie is beloved. But I guess for me, I didn't ever look that. I mean, I know the time period. I know race is an integral part to the story, but he's just a gentle man. He's just a gentle giant. And yeah, I don't think it's ever bothered me. I know it's bothered for some people, but I think it's written well enough. I think it's directed well enough. I don't think of it. I know it's there. I just think it's just executed really well. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think when you look at John, like nothing about his power is enjoyable. Like it's like a burden. It's like a curse almost that he has to deal with.
Yeah, that's why he wants to die. Then he's like, I cannot hold this suffering anymore.
Yeah, and I mean the trope is really just that like the character is essentially there for like a white protagonist to learn from and develop, and don't actually develop or get fleshed out. But I feel like you do spend a decent amount of time with him and come to understand him, and the story also is focusing on the just straight up blatant injustice of his killing. And it's more so the white characters having to come to terms with that. And this is very much, there are a lot of similarities between this and Shawshank, I think, in feel and vibe and in the story. But this is kind of like the even darker side of these prisons in an era when people had even less rights and freedoms and were, I think, obviously Shawshank spans like 20 years, but this is really kind of the worst of the worst in regards to someone's execution. So it's a very, very sad movie. And I think the ending of this is also incredible. I love that. I think it's a really, really good ending.
Do you think anything? I don't know why, because it makes perfect sense for the ending. But for some reason, like I didn't like the part where the family of like the two girls was sitting there like yelling names at him and stuff. Did that like take you out of the movie at all or anything? Or do you like think that could have been done better?
Why?
I don't know. I really can't tell you because I just finished this last night at like 1 a.m. Like I was telling Brock and Stone before we hopped on. But like that, for some reason, I don't like that part, like of them just sitting there, like yelling. Like it's almost like I wish they were just in like a different room, like with a glass window where they could see in, and you just couldn't hear them.
That's the reality of it, though.
Yeah.
Like
No, yeah, and I
So
totally understand that. I like, I don't know, in my head, like the thing that made, like obviously that was very impactful, and that should be in the movie. For some reason, it's just taking me out, and like in my head, like it would have been better if like they were behind like a window and you couldn't hear what they were like yelling at him, but you could see the anger.
Well, I think part of the problem with what it's showing is like this was almost like entertainment to a lot of these people. Like it was like a show. And I think it's definitely uncomfortable, but I think part of it is like coming to terms with that.
Yeah, because I think one of the people are like, kill them twice, or something like that, and everyone's like, yeah, like it almost is like a circus, to them. Like people like in executions back in the day. I only know this because like Red Dead Redemption. I feel like you would get dressed up and like it was something you would go and be in awe of, as opposed to like
that could
justice. But also this also feels more like a lynching really than anything.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what it is. And
yeah, and like I bring that up, and like I don't think the ending's bad. I think the ending is like perfect. Like I don't know why in my head I was just like, I wonder if that could have been done a little better. But
yeah, I also think the only thing that's maybe a bit like I'm not sure why John is portrayed as like kind of simple. Like I don't know what, like it seems like do you know what I mean? Like they make him kind of like slow and just I think like that is the kind of like tropey thing where it's like I don't know.
yes, master, like like kind of like yeah.
I don't know. And I haven't read the book, so I don't know what that's like in the book. But at the same time, I think it's also at a time societally where he would have had absolutely no power and absolutely no ability to do anything or even be fairly represented. So, like, what is he supposed to do besides that?
Right.
And I think he's kind of portrayed as someone who's a bit like vulnerable, and it makes it even more kind of horrifying. So like I see criticisms there, but I also see the positives of it.
So like you just made me think of something too. Going back to like the magical Negro trope, which I know Spike Lee is the one who kind of coined that. I think of like Legend of Bagger Vance. Like that's done poorly. Like, people are getting lynched. I know, but like people are getting lynched left and right. Will Smith's like Matt Damon. Let's still work on your golf game though. We got to get, your golf game down.
That movie just kind of like pretends race doesn't exist.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it is a good movie. I do like it.
Yeah. The thing I think with that movie is he's very like kind of painfully harsh towards Damon, and it almost is there to like wake him up. Like he doesn't seem like someone who's necessarily vulnerable, but also it's like he doesn't feel human. Like I feel like that is an Angel story.
Yeah, I agree,
and that's why it's okay. And I think that movie is also just very much more so about like trauma and PTSD, which I feel like never gets addressed properly in movies. But like that is literally what that story is about. But it is weird in that just like race is not even a concept in that story. It's just it's Georgia. Like it is bizarre.
Very bizarre. But yeah, I mean, I gotta chew on that a little bit. just look at some other films, but that's interesting. I one of the problems for this film for me, and I'd be curious to hear what you guys think, is the character of like Percy, like the guard, just like instantly heinous, and just like I know why he's there and like why he's trying to get a new job, but I'm just like, damn, you just set him up from the jump. But I'm just like kind of irredeemable in a little bit of sense for me. Could not stand him. The actor just kind of has like a weird sweaty look to him. Maybe that's just me nitpicking. I don't know. I just didn't like the look of him. But like he's just evil to be evil. Maybe that's kind of the point because you can just mistreat people. But how did you guys like his character?
Well, it was good. I think the character in itself like makes sense, but I'm with you. I don't like that right off the rip. He is just aggressively like just a piece of shit for the entirety of it.
I think it's very real. Like I think there are just people like that, and there probably were a lot of people that gravitated towards these jobs at the time because you can just abuse people. And I think looking at a lot of different professions, I mean, you know, there are people that become police officers because they want to be able to have control, and there are people, and there's that's not the majority, but like there's people that go in the military because they want to be able to do things that they want to. Like there's people that go into every profession. There's people that are nurses that have killed people and abused that power.
Are running for president.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, there's people in every single profession really that are there for the wrong reason. And I think at this time, it definitely would have attracted people like that.
Sure.
Because there's and he's protected too by his family. So it makes it that much more disgusting. Yeah. Also, Sam Rockwell in this too
I'm so happy you brought him up.
He's really good in this role. I don't know. I feel like people feel very good. Yeah.
Dude, when he first came on screen, I was like, that looks like Sam Rockwell. I was like, there's no way, right? Like, because I did not think he was as old as he is, because he looks good for like in 2025. Like, he looks good for his age. I didn't realize he had been acting this long, so he really caught me off guard, but he is so good in this. And I also love like the part where he spits the moon pie. And then Tom Hanks is like, that was original. I got to give it to him.
Yeah. Something I thought was cool, Bruce Willis got Michael Clarke Duncan this role because they were in Armageddon together, which is a banger. And he suggested to, I guess the producers, whatever, that he take this role. And I thought that was great that he advocated for him in that way because it just was a perfect casting. And I don't know many people could have done that. You know, especially with just how like larger than life, you know, he was. So,
I mean, after watching this movie, I rewatched one of his other movies. I'm a defender of 2003's Daredevil, the director cut, but like that, and then you go from like imagine watching something like The Green Mile and then putting on like Talladega Nights and seeing him in that. Like he had a good range in his sadly short-lived career. So a lot of movies I like have him in it, which I just started realizing that after I watched this movie.
Yeah, he's in The Whole Nine Yards too with Bruce Willis that I just recommended, which is very funny. Armageddon with Bruce Willis. They told him he had to stop lifting.
He's a big boy.
They're like, bro, you're already too huge. Like, you got to be like, look like you could be in the 30s. I don't know what him stopping lifting did. I think that ship had sailed, but
6'5", 315 pounds. Dude should have been a lineman.
Yeah, he was huge. I also think Stephen King said this is like the most faithful adaptation of his work ever, and he loves this movie.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I mean, Stephen King like could write outside of the genre. I think it's, you know, we talked about Misery and how people didn't like that. I think it's a shame because maybe if he had not felt constrained in that way, he would have written more stories outside of, you know, horror. And obviously this is, you know, ends up being a pretty horrifying story, but more so of a drama. Do you guys have any other big thoughts here? And Connor, I don't know if you want to text Stone or let him know.
Yeah, I can get him I can shoot him a text. There's one character's name. Who's the not warden? Oh, he is the warden. James Cromwell. I really liked him in this because like I feel like a lot of the stuff I've seen him in, I haven't seen him in a lot, I'll say, but I feel like he's usually kind of like the old kind of like asshole like boss or supervisor or something. And this one, like he seems fairly redeemable, I should say, like if that's the right word, because like obviously he doesn't totally trust Michael Clark Duncan's character, but then he kind of is at a loss for how to help his wife, and we can see him very visibly upset about this. And like it even sticks around to this day, but especially in like the time period that this takes place in, like men weren't known to cry. And like we see him like kind of affected by this even before John Coffey shows up, and then he heals his wife and changes his perspective, and he like tries to pull strings to make sure he doesn't get the death penalty, but obviously out of his hands. I really liked him in this.
I think it's interesting because like it's a story about like pain and understanding of what other people go through, and I think you realize like he's dealing with his wife's sickness all the time, and that's on his mind, and he's thinking about that, and just like that sickness is a burden on her, obviously physically, it's also a burden on him, and changing how he is. Also, David Morse is great in this, and Barry Pepper too. Is wonderful.
I like James Cromwell. He's also another really good warden in another one of my favorite movies, The Longest Yard. So he's good in that. He's good in both. So yeah, it's a good cast.
Yeah, he's a lot more despicable in that.
Oh yeah.
I don't like him much here, but
yeah,
good movie.
Yeah, but yeah, no, this is a pretty iconic movie, iconic poster. This is the one I, go back and rewatch often. I think The Link, like this, it's a long 3 hours. Like I feel like it's a pretty steady 3 hours. It's decently paced, but heavy movie. It's good to watch during Black History Month, which was cool. But yeah, I really enjoyed The Green Mile.
Yeah, it was my first watch. I'm really happy I finally got around to it. My mom's been yelling at me for weeks to watch it, and she said if I watch this, she'll watch Prisoners. So, balls in your court, Mom.
Shout out to Connor's mom.
She also wants to be a guest someday.
Nice. I also just wanted to say quickly, Frank Darabont, he directed this, he directed Shawshank, and he directed The Mist.
Damn.
And that's it. And then he did the first season of. He was heavily involved with the first season of The Walking Dead. And
Interesting.
It ended up being a huge lawsuit with him. Like him and AMC had a huge falling out. He ended up suing them, winning like $200 million. But I think that situation like off-put him towards like the industry. But crazy successful short run, and then he's kind of disappeared after that. So, really good direction.
Before we move on, would you guys rate this?
I have it at 5 stars.
I'm gonna at 4.5.
Yeah, I'm between a 4.5 and 5, but I'm leaning 4.5.
Damn. A Dan 5-star? That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. Gerald's Game's the same. What was your recommendation for this week?
No, it's not the same.
What are we gonna do? Like 10 minutes on this, real quick?
Yeah, this was a Brock. You haven't seen this, right?
No, I have not. I started it. Once the dude died, I'm like, yeah, this ain't it for me.
He comes back, kind of.
I know, but I'm just like, nah.
You didn't even get the worst parts of the movie.
I mean, I looked it up on Wikipedia as you guys talk about it. Ooh, this sounds kind of ass, to be honest. To me, wasn't. I know a lot of people liked it, and I know Mike Flanagan was behind it, but I'm like, oh yeah, no, I wasn't vibing with it.
Yeah, Gerald's Game. I mean, Stone, you've been out for a while. Do you want to talk a little bit about it quickly?
Yeah, I could talk about it. So I really enjoy Mike Flanagan. I like Haunting of Hill House, which I feel like everyone loves, but especially Midnight Mass. I've spoke about it many times, but coming from a very religious background, that spoke a lot to me about how people can manipulate text to get their way. So I'm always a big fan of his. I also think he might overdo it when it comes to using the same actors all the time. Like he might be the most, speaking of religious, he might be the most religious when it comes to that. But and this, Gerald's Game is no different. Especially, I think that all these actors, the main two actors in this, pop up in the Fall of the House of Usher, which is also a show of his as well. Anyways, but yeah, Gerald's Game has an interesting premise, in my opinion. It's about this husband and wife who basically are trying to rekindle their relationship. So they go to kind of a secluded home to have a weekend getaway with each other. And then you soon find out that the husband is a little bit more kinky with his desires than his wife realizes.
That's the word for
and
it.
I mean, it is a king. He wants to be a dominatrix, I guess. I don't know. They put her in situations where she can't get out of, and he, for some reason, even though I believe that this actress, Carla I don't pronounce her last name right, Giugino, Gugino, yeah. How you say it?
I think Gugino, but it might be Gugino. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, I think she's one of the most beautiful actresses I've ever laid eyes on. Because I mean, ever since I saw her in Spy Kids, the mom, I was just like, my heart was fixed on her forever. So just being honest. Anyways,
Gugino.
so yeah, okay. Say again.
Gugino.
Gugino. I am so sorry, Carla, if you are listening.
I don't remember what you said, so that's fine.
Okay, but anyways, yeah. So he puts her in these situations, which is the main thing is two handcuffs. Handcuffs her one arm to a bedpost, the other arm to the other bedpost, and begins to try to be like role play, tries to be intimate with her, and she's just not digging it. Tells him, let's not do this. Kind of, I think, headbutts him or kicks him a little bit to get him off. He gets really pissed. It's like, what are we doing here? I thought we would do this together. And she's like, I didn't realize you wanted me to scream for help. Like, what are we doing here? Kind of a thing. And as they're arguing, Gerald, his game comes to an end, and he dies of a heart attack. So pretty interesting. And then she is chained still to the bed frame, and she has to figure out a way to get out of that. And as she's doing this, which lasts a couple days, she's slowly losing her mind from dehydration, and not only is hallucinating herself and her dead husband talking to her, but also she gets like hallucinations, or she remembers things from her past, and we get to learn more about her and her life and her childhood, primarily with how her father treated her. But then that also gives us a sense of why she didn't necessarily want to be put in these situations that her husband put her in. Yeah, so the handcuffing, husband dying feels very Stephen Kingy. It's a good idea. I think I talked about this on live with you, Dan. Unfortunately, the one thing that this movie has to do, I'm just not a fan of, which is you can't just have Carla just chained by herself there and just not speak. She can't just like speak to herself the entire time, but she literally speaks to herself, right? She speaks to different versions of herself, of her husband and her, and they like walk her kind of through what she's thinking. They basically, every single thought that she has in her mind, they say. And I'm not a big fan of that, but if one of you two guys want to talk about the other issue with this movie, which is her backstory. So the two parts of this don't work for me, but her backstory is an interesting choice, I will say. I don't know if it's from Stephen King. I don't know if it's from Flanagan. Some of it's from Flanagan, but
yeah. I'll start with one positive for me. I'm a bitch when it comes to horror, so I will say the first time death kind of appeared in her room got me. Like, that scared me. But after that, I'm actually with Stone. I didn't finish Gerald's Game this week. I'm maybe like 20 minutes past what we're about to talk about, and that's the fact that the big jump scare in this is molestation from a demon, which is just a wild choice.
Basically, she was molested by her dad, which they just like keep coming back to like in multiple scenes. I mean, we talked about it with Shawshank. I just don't, especially with kids, it's just not necessary. Like, if you have any talent as a writer, you can imply something. Just really bizarre. And then the second scene there, like you just said, is worse than the first. And then it ends with she hallucinates a monster in her room. And then it like flashes back to reality. It's just like, what are we doing? Like, this just feels exploitative and like weird. And this movie, you know, and no pun intended, like it's very heavy-handed with every single thing it does. Um, Especially the ending, like there's all this exposition, and then also the ending, there's this just storyline with this like weird necrophiliac guy who was like a serial killer, and he was there too. Adds absolutely nothing to the story. Like that ending is terrible writing, like straight up terrible writing. Um, and I thought this movie was just terrible. Like it's terrible, and I think like the strength of it is like the performance really from Carla. Like
She's
it is,
great, yeah.
she's like desperately trying to carry this movie, and Bruce is good too. Um, but what their back and forth is so repetitive. Like their issues are obvious. It's this could have been a good short. Like this could be a good 20-30 minute story. That's it, and it's stretched out to 103 minutes. Um, but yeah, everything about her childhood just weird and just not well done with any tact. So
yeah, I don't know if you guys felt this way. Like was this the first time watch for all three of us?
No, I've actually seen this movie before because I like Flanagan.
But like when we first get to the flashback of her on the lake or like at the lake house, and like her dad and mom arguing, and it seems like her dad's kind of like her best friend at that point. And then I was like, oh, there's a flashback, like she's having a happy memory, like to try and take herself out of this headspace. And then no, she's 13, sits on his lap, and he just starts masturbating. Like,
yeah.
What are we doing?
Also, they're like, I hate in movies where like characters in no way did that feel like they were dad and daughter. Like he felt like a stranger, which I understand. Like, obviously, you're not going to portray him in some great positive light, but it literally felt like they were strangers. And it's just, I don't know, everything about that scene I thought was just really poorly done and strange. But that was in the book, so I don't know.
I will say, Connor, you applauded them for, when death came the very first time, that it was a good scare, it creeped you out kind of a thing. I will say there's one significant moment of gore in this movie, and it really lands. It's very uncomfortable to watch. And I applaud the special effects artists and the, practical effects artists, whoever came up with that design and how that looked, because it's like the one thing that you're expecting to maybe happen, and then it happens, and you're like, geez, that's exactly how I pictured it, and it's still uncomfortable. So I do give him props there. Yeah, Carla's performance is really, really carrying this. I agree, Dan. There's just huge exposition dump at the very end. I also think, just for coming from, how much I love Flanagan's work, there's nothing about the actual filmmaking side of this that I really enjoy. There is one good cut, or I will say one good edit, where you see that there's this whole thing with like the solar eclipse having a lot of significance as to when significant moments in her life happen, I believe. And there's a really good cut to when they're finally doing something interesting visually, and you see like this red glow, right? That's on Carla's face in this flashback, which I thought was good. But besides that, there's really nothing interesting with the cinematography, with the editing, with the score. There's no no score to this. So I get that not every movie needs that, but you gotta have one of those things. So that, to me, that's just a very lackluster film that's not memorable in any way. Unfortunately, the only thing memorable about this is someone licking a toe, and unfortunately, that toe is a child. So
yeah, I also just think like, what's that actor? He's very famous. He was in like
he's in the Addams Family,
Twin Peaks. He was in Addams Family. He was in Men in Black. His name is Carol Strucken. Not sure. He's Dutch. I don't know. I think it's a little weird. I feel it's a little exploitative again. Just being, look at this guy. He looks so crazy, and he's like some kind of horror monster at the end. It's like that scene feels so disjointed. And like she gets to like, I guess the point of that is she gets to stand up to him, and like he is kind of a representation of like the other men in her life that have mistreated her. But like he's also just a crazy guy. Like
It doesn't feel like it has any weight because
it doesn't have any impact because there's no impact on her actual life. Their only connection is he didn't kill her. It just feels disjointed. I don't know. I think the best thing about this movie is the dog. I like that storyline. And I think it's pretty funny because she shows the dog kindness and offers it food. The husband almost runs it over because he's not paying attention. Then it's kind of like giving her shit about feeding it, and then it ends up eating him, which I think is actually pretty funny. But the threat of being tied there and having that dog that you don't trust just like walking around looking at you, like that's pretty horrifying. But the rest of this, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about this movie. I think it's just
I was good. Like,
nothing.
This will be my last piece, but like I think this movie genuinely could work, even as like a feature-length film, not 20 minutes like you said. And I think it could do without the flashbacks if you just write better dialogue for her ghost husband.
Yeah, like really let them go through a lot of stuff. Like make it like a dialogue-heavy movie, and then or maybe if you do like when you have a character who's hallucinating and stuff, you can do whatever you want. You can do interesting stuff. Like you could.
That's what I'm saying. There's nothing interesting.
Visual representations of their back and forth and their struggle. That would have been interesting. Like
could have been a small budget too, because this is basically like a 2-location film, right? It's just like the beach house or wherever they're in, a flashback, and then the other house. Could have been the same house. Who knows?
But like you can even like make it not like fixing their marriage, obviously, because he's dead. So
yeah, but hashing out their issues. Because like
almost giving her closure, but then like there's that entire horror element that it worked really well for me. Again, like the first like 15 minutes of this movie do work for me. Like the looming threat of that dog, like the uncomfortability. That uncomfortability works in a movie when it's like a dog like eating your deceased spouse right in front of you. Like that's gonna make the audience uncomfortable, but like it's not molestation, you know, like
yeah. I just can't take like her thoughts being said to us. Like, you remember his dick pills? Yeah, it made him really thirsty. She goes, "Oh shit, you're right."
Yeah, and I'm with you. That's what I'm saying. Get someone to write this better, and it works. I don't know.
Like, I don't know if this is Stephen King though. Like, I wish I had read the book and I could see like what exactly words were from him and what was like Mike Flanagan. I think there was another writer attached to this as well. Like, whose fault is it? This like I don't know.
I figured out what your promo video will be this week. You don't got to read the book, but like just find an online comparison. Like, how closely does this compare? Because you missed it. I forget if it was Dan or Brock that said. I think it was Dan that The Green Mile Stephen King said is the best adaptation of one of his books.
Most faithful, yeah.
That sounds like your type of video. What's the best adaptation of a Stephen King book?
Well, there you go. It's The Green Mile. But I can maybe like twist that to it.
But that sounds like a video you would make, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. I'll have to do some research on that when I'm working tonight. I have to finish The Green Mile though. That was a good movie though. I liked it so far. I would say. Michael Clark Duncan's got like superpowers, so that's cool. Wasn't expecting that at all. It was a very serious film. Well, it is still a serious film, and then all of a sudden it has some fantasy in it, and I was like, okay, that's cool. A little bit different than Shawshank, even though it's the same director, same writer. But
are you ready for Brock?
I wish Gerald's Game was more fun. Like, there's no game here. What is the game? You're a bad husband because you have a boring game. Handcuffs is all you bring, really? Yeah. Sorry. Scream for me. What are you, a 20-year-old boy? Like, what are we doing here?
What did you guys rate that?
2 stars.
2 stars.
Okay. I'll probably finish it today. I don't want to, but I probably will just to rate it.
Well, on that note, let's speak about another movie that's just in line with it. It's so funny, Brock. We were texting back and forth. And we were talking about, bringing you on the pod last minute. they said, well, I was like, Brock hasn't talked about the monkey though, so it'll just be me and Dan. They're like, Brock has seen the monkey. I was like, I just talked to Brock. He hasn't seen the monkey. He must have just watched it today. And then Connor's like, yeah, he watched it today.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday. Yeah.
So I looked though. I don't think you put up a letterbox review, and I don't think you put up a video. So
No.
maybe your opinion's different than me and Dan's on this.
No, it's not. I just forgot to log it.
Okay.
I don't give a crap. 2025 has kind of really been ass in movies so far. Like I'm kind of like, oh man, like couple good things, but like it's not starting off pretty good. So I was kind of like
there is a lot of good stuff coming, but
there is.
Right now, I'm just like
drag. Like if I didn't talk about movies, I wouldn't be going to see half of these movies I wouldn't saw for sure. But
Mickey 17's about to come out.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for that. Excited for that for sure. But yeah, no. I did not enjoy this. This is a 2-star for me, and we can get into it. So,
what was the tagline for this movie? It's like people are dying, and that's fucked up.
Yeah. Oh man. So like I liked Long Legs. Like I have it at a 4-star. I originally had it 4.5, and I still enjoy it. It's a 4-star. And then I don't know, for some reason, Oscar Perkins, like, and just watching his press, it's kind of come off as like smug a little bit. And maybe that's a hot take for saying he's kind of like,
no, he's a dickhead.
Yeah. Like I just really feel like he's like, hey, you know that one funny scene that everyone thought was funny in Long Legs with Nicolas Cage screaming? What if I made an entire movie like that had comedy like that I thought was funny or some shit like that? And just did not work for me. I got some notes here on my phone. But yeah, I know this. I think this has. So it came out yesterday. This has a C+ cinema score, which is like pulled by audiences. I think a lot of people went into this thinking it was going to be more horror than comedy, and it's actually more of a comedy than horror. Obviously, so I think a lot of people maybe that rub people the wrong way. Obviously, we look into things and maybe know that's not the case. But yeah, was just some like this. Oh, yes, we will be. Sorry, that's my daughter making her debut on the Goodwill podcasting. Come say hi real quick, and I'm about to kick you out. Can you say hi?
Hello.
What's up?
This is Emery. Can you say
How's
hi?
it going?
Hello.
Hello. We're talking about a really bad movie that you can't hear what I'm about to say. So I'm gonna let you. Yeah.
Brock, does she have a favorite movie?
Zootopia right now. So
There's a second one coming out.
yeah. So what else is your favorite movie? Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, close the door. Thank you. Sorry about that, but that's fine.
That's okay. It was her other one.
Zootopia, Coco,
Nice.
Scooby-Doo, Zombie Island, and yeah, I know.
Awesome.
Yeah, little she likes Scooby-Doo, and then I would probably say,
The monkey.
oh, yeah,
She came.
Yeah,
She's like the monkey's dog.
She's a big Osgood Perkins fan.
Yeah. Oh, she likes the live action Scooby-Doo too. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, this this movie wasn't fucking funny to me at all. I didn't like it at all. Like I just was like, yikes. I don't know. Maybe I know comedy's subjective, but oof.
I think more so than any other movie that I can remember, I think Dan was really curious about my opinion, like right away, because Dan knows how I am with comedies.
Yeah,
and like
I don't, right?
I don't like it because if you don't make me laugh, I think it's a really bad movie. And none of the comedy really works for me. There was one element that they had that they overdid that I thought was funny. So this movie it very much emphasizes the fact that there's two twin brothers. Yes. And obviously there's not two there's twin brothers. I think that's like, I don't have to say there's two twin brothers. But the one of the brothers is just slightly older than the other one, so he kind of picks on him. And they do that excessively, too many gags about him just like messing with him, especially towards the end where, I mean, this could be a spoiler, but there's a big, let's not say showdown, but there's a big conversation that happens at the end between three characters. and he just keeps on picking, like in a way, picking on his younger brother still, like 3 times in a row. I'm like, come on now, you're ruining this one good thing that I thought the movie had going for it. I told Dan there's one scene that made me laugh, was the fact that he gets to visit his kid. I think he only has his kid for this week. He's like on the phone with his brother. I only have my kid for this week, and he's like, I only have a kid for a week. You're weak. It just like kept going after that. I thought I wasn't expecting him to say that, so I thought, even though you didn't find that funny, I thought that was really good. But the kills aren't interesting. They're nothing that you haven't seen before. I think the first one's the best one. I was like, oh shoot, they're all going to be like this. They all weren't like that. I don't know why there's an obsession with just making people explode. I mean, the more blood isn't the better. You have to like
the pool scene took me out when there's a clip on Twitter that perfectly described it. It's like that one scene from SpongeBob when Squidward's riding a bike and he goes off the cliff and he just hits the bottom and just explodes. That's what that pool scene was.
Everyone's just exploding. I mean, even the shotgun girl, it's like the same same CGI effect, whatever they're doing, and in his head as well. Like, kind of mix it up a little bit. Like, I thought going into this, people are comparing it to Final Destination. The only thing that's Final Destination of this is the first kill. And I was like, okay, every single one of these is going to be like this, and it's not. So if your kills aren't interesting, if the movie isn't funny, I also think that for a comedy, sorry if you can hear my dogs barking in the background, but I also don't think that. I think Oscar Perkins' movies look good. Like, I think Longlegs and this look good, but that totally clashes for me when it comes to a comedy. I don't know why. I just don't think his cinematography style matches up with what he's trying to do here. So I don't think really anything about this movie works. I like Theo James' performance, especially when he plays like the evil twin brother. He does some things like with his mannerisms and his voice that I thought was really effective. And I think he is pretty-ish funny just about how he carries himself.
Sure.
Besides that, the whole son storyline, plot line, why am I taking this seriously? Like, you're telling me not to take this movie seriously, and then why are you trying to do this thing, kind of a thing? But I know I'm rattling off right now. Dan, what do you got for me?
I think this is just horrific. I think this movie is absolutely horrendous. I think this movie, like, tone-wise, and like I read the short story. Everyone can read it online. You should. It's a very serious, dark story. Yeah. And I think what's funny is we were talking about Frank Darabont, who directed Green Mile and Shawshank and The Mist. He had the rights to the monkey. He was going to make the monkey after The Mist, and he didn't. Oz ended up circling back on this, and basically he said Atomic Monster had a script that was too serious. He said it's too serious. It didn't work for him. The other thing with Osgood Perkins is this is kind of personal. His dad was a gay man who died of AIDS. He like came out after he was married. His mom died on 9/11. That was 9 years apart. So he felt like he had a personal connection to the story because he has two parents that had these really, wild kind of deaths. And he's been through a lot, obviously. He also has, I think he has like a couple sons from a couple different relationships. So I'm assuming the parental stuff was also personal to him. And I think he thinks the way to deal with that stuff is with jokes. But this, I don't know. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the case because I don't think anything here was funny. And maybe it's better to actually deal with that stuff in a serious way than to just try to, like, laugh your way through it. And I understand everyone deals with grief and stuff differently, but, like, I just don't think it's strange. And it almost is even stranger because this is more personal to him. it feels really bizarre.
I really was liking the movie when the tone was kind of more serious. I'm like, there's something there, like, with if they kind of kept it, but then, like you said, with the humor, I'm like, the first half was a lot stronger than the second half for sure. But like once they started doing like the montage, I'm like, I feel nothing. Like this is just trying to be
edgy.
It's just edgy. Yeah, exactly. That's the right word. Talk about
like
Theo
with the
James.
cheerleaders and stuff. Like, are you in on the joke? Do you realize that this is a funny movie?
Yeah,
that's actually the one time I laughed. I laughed for cheering for the body.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Did you Dan, I know you think about things like you're able to like kind of maybe see like movies doing. There was like some religious elements in here that were kind of interesting. Like I had my notes, like I'm like Hal and Bill, like Cain and Abel, like that's kind of like what I was thinking of a little bit, like with how he tries to kill his, brother in the beginning, and then I'm kind of jumping around the place, not to spoil anything, but then even at the end, there's a character that reveals itself, with a character, and I'm like, okay, is it his job now to watch over the monkey, I guess, per se. I don't want to give too much away, but I was like, that's kind of like he's played around 2 movies now with the religious elements, and I liked it more Longlegs. I wasn't really vibing with it here for some reason. I don't know.
Also with the preacher and everything, that scene was so jarring and so bad. Like,
oh yeah,
and I just think like a 50-year-old guy being like, religion's stupid. I'm like that. Like, bro, just grow the fuck up, please. Like, this is so cringy. Like,
yeah.
Not everyone has to be religious. I don't care what your faith is if you have it, but like to just have to be this like edgelord who's just like, yeah, you're all dumb. Like, it's just tired. Whatever. I think Longlegs was. I thought Longlegs was really funny. I think the humor of Longlegs is one of the best things it has going for it, and I think a lot of that. Some of it was intentional, some of it was not. Like, I think Oz trying to write a serious psychological thriller is kind of funny because his scripts are so fucking bad. And everything is so weird and jarring that I found a lot of it to be funny, whether it was intended or not. Here, when he's trying to be funny, I think it's deeply unfunny. There's a lot of jokes when they're kids also about, like, masturbating and sex. And it's just like, this kid's like 10. Like, this is so weird. And you went back to that over and over and over and over. Like, can you not think of anything else that's funny?
Yeah.
And again, the relationship with the brothers, when the brothers were young, they don't feel like they even know each other.
Mm-mm.
Like, it's just, and I don't think Theo James can act. I thought he was terrible in this. I thought the kid, what's his name? Colin O'Brien, the kid Hal, or his son, Petey, Hal's son, was like out acting Theo.
Oh, yeah. I would agree.
Like, it's just a bland performance. It's just, if you think people exploding is funny, you'll think this is a blast. If that gets you going, for sure, check this out. But like, it's just stupid as fuck. That woman that dies in the pool, why is she going swimming at 1:00 in the morning? Why does she watch an electricity box fall into a pool and then jump into it? What are we doing? Like, I understand it's stupid, but like, if it's going to be so stupid that and then you try to have some kind of serious emotional aspect of this, you don't even know what movie you're making. It's bad.
The comedy, I wrote my notes. I was just gonna say the comedy. It takes away so much from some of the dark things going on. I just didn't care when the body started falling. Like, I had like, it was fun to see. Like, initially it was kind of going on, and it just kind of cheapened. I think it was going on eventually. I was just like, nah.
Also, this guy just like watches human beings explode and just doesn't have any feeling or reaction. He's just like, oh, that just happened. Like, what?
I feel lied to that we thought that Elijah Wood was going to be more in this movie. He's in it for like 3 seconds. And that was super disappointing to me.
Serious situation Elijah Wood. That he tries to just make funny, and it's just like, why don't you just let this be emotional so I can actually care about these characters, this relationship? Like,
right. So James Wan produces. I'm really curious how much involvement he had, because his fingerprints don't feel like they're on this at all, in my opinion, just from his filmography. I've watched all of his movies.
So he works with the comic Monster. That's the company he founded, and I guess it was their script that originally was there that was more serious.
Oh, okay.
And then Osgood was like, no, I know better than you, so.
That makes sense. I feel like that was his name was. It felt like it was just slapped on for marketing for people. Like, ooh, James Wan.
100%. 100%. Everyone's like, with like Osgood Perkins, Stephen King, and James Wan attached, it's gonna be a wild ride.
And I know we were talking about Stephen King and like how he said The Green Mile was like his best movie adaptation of his work.
The Flash.
Yeah. He then tweeted something like, "This is like one of the best adaptations." I'm like, dude, after The Flash, you have no credibility with me, man. Get off Twitter.
Bro's getting paid. Bro's getting a fat check from me.
Him, Tom Cruise, and James Gunn. So,
well, that's the thing too that I think that needs to be said. That's really, really important. So this movie did open this weekend, and I think it's the second highest grossing weekend ever for Neon. And the number one is Longlegs.
Yeah.
So
Osgood
Perkins is not going anywhere anytime soon, especially for Neon. And he has another movie coming out that I'm sure they'll do some ad campaign and make it like one of the scariest movies of all time. And look at all his blood and guts. It's called Keeper, I believe is the name of the movie. But yeah, when you have the two highest grossing opening weekend movies for a studio, that's you're pretty much invincible for a while there.
Yeah.
I just know how to market his movies.
Oz is one more like gimmicky bad movie away from just being like, I feel like viewed as a complete hack, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, you didn't stay for the Keeper trailer?
No.
Oh, okay. So basically so they had I didn't realize that you didn't know what that was. So basically they had a trailer for his next movie, which is coming out at the end of this year. There's another movie coming out at the end of this year. It's kind of like what you didn't like, the whole kind of sketchy stuff he did during the strikes. And he's like, I'll take this opportunity to make 2 movies.
Yeah.
So it's called Keeper, and they showed like a little trailer of it at the end. But supposedly it's like an isolated movie in like a home with only 2 characters. But the trailer was just a bunch of women screaming, like 6 or 7 women just screaming. So like they show a shot of one woman, shot of the next woman, shot of the next woman. They're all just screaming. So kept it vague. Sure, I don't know. It stars Tatiana Maslany. So She-Hulk, which was also in this movie as well. So that's cool that she's getting work.
But. Yeah, it is. Yeah, she's cool. One of the other characters too, I forgot. I called him Corey. I know it says Rowan Campbell. He was in this movie from Halloween Ends, and I thought that was really weird that he felt a monkey could take the place of an absent father. That's just something I'm like. Okay, dude. Like that's what I'm just like, dude. Hurry, get me out of here. I left my wife and daughter for this. What am I doing?
Dude, those bees look so bad. I was disappointed. I was like, okay, this could be interesting. And then what they do with those, I'm like, what are we doing? This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Cameo at the beginning. Really liked that. That was my favorite part of the movie.
Oh yeah,
guy that's in it. We could just say it. I mean, he's like the 5th person now. Adam Scott, was not expecting him to be in this film. Really cool.
I know your letterbox review is great on that.
He's going to be. It made me think about this. I think it was on Twitter too, which reminded me that he's going to be starring in the next movie from the Oddity director, which is pretty exciting.
Cool.
So I'm excited to see that.
There's also an annoying cameo in this movie too. From Oz
himself. Yeah, dude.
And then he kills himself off, which is fine by me.
Yeah, this movie needed to be like an absolute shitpost with just straight up a straight comedy, or needed to be horrifying and upsetting and dread inducing, like the story. When you constantly are undercutting any kind of emotion or any kind of actual dread or horror with stupid ass humor, you're just doing yourself a disservice. Like, I don't understand.
Also, screw Disney for trademarking monkey with symbol.
The monkey. Honestly, it kind of worked because you can't put popcorn in the symbols, so it worked out for their popcorn bucket. Which Neon having a popcorn bucket is pretty big.
That is cool. Yeah, I will say that.
So what do you rate this, Brock? Did you put out the review?
No, I'm going to. On Letterboxd, I got a 2 out of 5. It was so like forgettable. Like you guys know how to do like Matthew reactions. I'm like, I didn't even film anything. Like I just went straight to I was just ready to get out of there, which is not a good sign. But yeah, very forgettable. Still kind of waiting for that. I liked Longlegs a lot as I've rewatched it. I'm still kind of waiting for that movie that I love from Osgood Perkins. I fear that's not going to happen. But I as I kind of looked more into him, just kind of. Yeah. But he's going, like you said.
You should check out The Black Coat's Daughter.
Okay, I haven't seen that. I have not seen that.
Okay. Stop, damn. I think that's better than Longlegs.
God. Oh no,
it's not ass.
But yeah, just didn't work for me, and I know. I think my hesitancy. I don't want to debate horror with anyone. I'm so over. I was debating Captain America, and I'm not trying to debate subjectivity. So I'm just like, I probably won't put up a review. So yeah. I'll plug you guys for the podcast just for you.
Yeah, I'm never going to think about this.
Appreciate it, homie.
Yeah.
Well, no. We'll think about you being on this episode, though. Not the monkey boat, Brock. We won't forget what we won't forget what you did for us today.
Oh yeah.
What a hero! Speaking of Captain America, we have him right here.
Man, God, that movie had a bad drop off. Anyway, no, I'm gonna do a ranking Stephen King movies. I think that'll be a perfect opportunity for this. So I'm gonna rank my top five favorite adaptations.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, is there any movie that you could think of that you would recommend to our audience before you leave?
Absolutely. So,
personal favorite of you, looking over at those VHSs or whatever.
Oh, yeah. So, I've been, Dan knows this, talking with him a lot. Been watched a lot of movies that I hadn't seen for Black History Month. So, if you guys really want to get some stuff that's gonna mess with your soul, make you think, I'm definitely gonna recommend Higher Learning. It's directed by John Singleton. It was his second movie after Boys in the Hood, 1995. Has Omar Epps, Ice Cube, Lawrence Fishburne, young Tyra Banks. Really stacked cast, to be honest, for where a lot of their careers ended up going. Follows four different students, different races of a university in the 90s, and just culture classes, and some neo-Nazis as well, which is it feels like honestly the movie could have been made today. Really just honestly shook me pretty good. And then I would also recommend a more popular movie, but I recently rewatched Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee. Great movie. One of the best movies I think that takes place within a day. And then also Point Break. That's something really dumb. Go watch that movie. Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze. It's about a guy who played quarterback for Ohio State, Keanu Reeves. He becomes an FBI agent, tries to stop these surfers dressed up as presidents, robbing banks, and then it's Patrick Swayze with a six-pack. Enjoy yourself.
Do you hold that in a higher regard because it's Ohio State?
No, just because it's Keanu Reeves, man, and Patrick Swayze, but it is dope. Go Bucks.
What's your movie, Stone?
I like keeping in the theme of Black History Month. This is, I feel like, the second time in a row that I'm recommending a movie that Dan recommended to me, which I feel bad because I texted Connor privately and I said, hey, I got a movie from Dan. I got to get a movie from you. I want to, just watch some of your guys' favorites. And I've yet to watch Connor's pick, but that's because we watch 5 movies a week and it's tough to cram stuff in. But
that's cool.
Yeah,
I don't either.
But I watched.
What's up?
What was your pick?
I looked at his watch list, so I told him to watch Platoon.
Oh man,
yeah.
But I also really want him to watch A Silent Voice.
I will. I'll do it this week for Silent Voice, right? Anime, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I will. I'll do it tonight. How about that? Cross my heart. But this relationship will be better than the relationship in Gerald's Game, me and you, Connor. Not as kinky though. But anyways, Fruitvale Station, going from very not serious to serious. I would love to get through Ryan Coogler's filmography by the time Sinners comes out, but this is definitely his least watched film. Still a lot of people have seen it, but this being his directorial debut is really impressive, really important. And I think you see a lot of potential just with the way he sets up shots and frames it, but then also what he chooses to focus on as well with this story, because I know the majority of what people remember from Oscar Grant and the passing of him is the aftermath and basically the protesting that went on. But instead of doing that, which I think would have not, reprimanding this, but would have been kind of a basic way to tell this story, he chose to focus on his life before the events and talk to his family members and listen to the court hearings. And he painted Oscar Grant in not a great way, but a genuine way, because I read up and it said that Coogler basically, when you listen to the court hearings, either people were saying Oscar was the greatest person in the world, or he was the worst person. So which one is it? Might be in the middle kind of. So that's what he chose to tell the story about. But he did get confirmation from his girlfriend that they were planning on hopefully moving away from the area and starting a life anew, which is really what is the driving force behind this movie, is Oscar trying to change his life around, trying to change his past, trying to be a better father for his daughter. Powerful, true story. Unfortunately, that's still situations like this happen today, but it's just an important reminder and it's just an important time in history to always remember stuff like this whenever you're going out and about when you have so much hate still in the world. So really powerful message here. But it's available to stream on Max. I watched it on Max, so it should be available to stream on Max for everyone. Fruitvale Station.
Nice.
I still need to watch that one, but I'll keep it under the same umbrella. My favorite, Luca Guadagnino, Bones and All. One of my favorite actors, Taylor Russell.
Wait, which umbrella is this?
For Black History.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
Taylor Russell. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And kind of this episode with some horror in this.
Yeah.
So
I love Bones and All, man. So good.
yeah, I think it was fantastic, and I think our faithful listeners to this podcast have heard me glaze Taylor Russell 1,000 times.
Very true.
Also, I'll give my recommendation. I saw Hard Truths, which I think is one of the kind of underrated movie, not underrated, but like a movie from last year more people should see. It's a Mike Lee movie. Marianne Jean-Baptiste is one of the people a lot of people feel like got snubbed. She was wonderful. Basically, it's just a movie about an older woman. She has an older son who still lives at home. She has a husband. Both those relationships are really strained. She has a sister and 2 nieces who are older. And basically, you just are uncovering why she is so goddamn angry. She's one of the angriest, most obnoxious characters you'll ever see in a movie. And you kind of get into like the pain and trauma and the why behind that. And it goes into, her relationship with her own mother. And it very much shows the way that people who are so mad at the world, oftentimes are just either in pain or fearful or a combination of those things. Also, while not excusing her behavior. So really good movie. Hard Truths came out last year. I think it's still showing in some theaters and stuff. So check it out if you can.
Nice. Well, Brock, 3rd time's a charm, my guy. This is it. No more appearances on Gold Podcast. I'm just kidding.
Damn, this is what we're going out on. Damn. Okay.
But no.
Not the monkey.
Yeah. But no. We completely. I mean, just are so thankful that you were able to pop on with us, man. It's always a pleasure having you on, especially when you had stuff going on today that you were able to fit us in your schedule and stay up so late watching some of these films. It means the world to us. And guys, if you're not following Brock, please do. One of the most genuine guys you'll see, who is just, in my opinion, like I'm so afraid to be as open as you are. Like a story you told about your wife and stuff like that. That's powerful stuff. And I think the more open you are with your audience, the more, I don't know, you build a community. And it's really impressive to see just how a genuine person you are. Such a good friend to all 3 of us. But anyways, I'm rambling. You also take great takes on movies too, and especially about things you're passionate about. But where can everyone find you, man?
Yeah, so you can find me at Movie Talk with Brock on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I guess I should say Facebook as well. I randomly had like 6,000 followers now. I'm like, oh my, okay, well.
Dan can't do the Facebook crowd.
Oh, it's toxic. It's hella toxic. But
I was fighting for my life on there, man.
On the flat. But yeah, no, that's where you can find Movie Talk with Brock on all platforms. So yeah, appreciate you guys. Appreciate the words. Always great coming chatting here with you guys and talking up movies. Keep me in mind for Sinners or Superman for sure, because I'm actually gonna be able to get to see Superman like the week of the premiere because it was shot here in Ohio through some connections. So come back on for that or something. So it'll be
nice.
I'm nervous, but it'll be either good or bad.
Tell James Gunn I say hi.
I had some beef with him. Quit delaying the Batman, motherfucker. So anyway.
All right. On that note, thanks everybody for listening to us talk about Stephen King. Wide variety of movies that we talked about today. Some good, some bad, but that's the fun of movies. So thank you so much. Until next week, though, please go outside, sit on a park bench, touch some grass, call up your friends, tell them you love them, and we'll see you next week. Peace out, everybody.